Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I'll bring to you another 40k detachment genre review. I've been taking joy in reviewing these detachments in groups as far as the same-ish rules around each other. If I miss one along the way that you feel needs to go in here, please let me know. But moving on, we are now going to talk about this interesting mechanic, which is odd that they haven't figured out how to make it good yet. Or great, I guess. Grotmis brought us not one, but two flavors of, hey, control objective markers in no man's land, and you will expand your flow of magic, hallowed ground, uh, Chaos, Shadow of Chaos. There we go. And Power Matrix, right? So it's kind of odd how varied these have been in terms of power. Hex Warp Thrall Band, we kind of all acknowledge it is pretty not good. And then Grey Knights, we expect more from this, but it seems like Grey Knight players just haven't found a build yet. We saw that it was pretty powerful that first week it came out, and everybody stopped playing it. And I don't know what happened where people lost the plot, but here we are. And it's even odder that this all comes from the fact that this is Chaos Demon's army rule, but the army rule is the same problem that a lot of the army rules have, in which the army rule doesn't do as much if you aren't specifically playing the index detachment that comes along with it. So there's that. I'm not going to talk about demonic incursion on top of this because this is the part that really matters for the sake of this. So I guess it's not a detachment review, huh? A rules genre review? And then, of course, we've seen Canoptic Court, but this also fell out of favor. So, it begs to ask the question if this part of the detachment rule means anything, right? Because Hexwarp Thrall Band, after going back through it, I realize if you ignore this part, right? If you just say, fuck all of this, there's there's still nothing. It's just not. I'll take that back. There's something, but it's not a lot, right? It isn't very good beyond that. And I understand that they were like, hey, Thousand Suns got out of hand for a bit there. We gotta make sure that doesn't happen again when we release this. But they've inadvertently released something that just isn't worth doing. And I hear the chattering amongst some of the detachments that came out in Grotmis that were lackluster, and it's like, well, keep in mind that the army rules might change, so these will probably be better. And now that we have a little bit of evidence with the elves getting an entirely new army rule, right? Or I guess a returning army rule in a different way, right? Now that we have that, Armor Warhost, I don't care what anyone says. I'm not seeing that be better right now. I understand the vehicles are better, but it says, hey, I can turn on star engines and make a normal move, or I could do assault, right? I'm not seeing that detachment get better, no matter how much people are trying to cope, right? I don't know. But hey, if somebody does prove me wrong, I will happily eat the entire crumb. So for Hexwarp Thrallband, I can't see a world into which this gets better without giving away that you do a lot more psychic attacks. And even then, you are now either getting the rules you would get from being with Armin, either of the Armins, right? Or Magnus, or a Rubric Marine, if I remember correctly. There's another unit that does one of these two things, right? And we're not looking at the largest roster to ever be done for Thousand Suns. Half of the units are Thousand Suns in front of unit that already exists that does not generate Cabal points and will not have psychic attacks. Unless all of a sudden they lose their damn mind and give Vindicators and Forge Fiends psychic attacks for the fuck of it. But I don't see that happening. So you take away all of this and you're left with this and this to work with to possibly gain more psychic attacks, and most of those can be joined by one of these, or affected by this guy, or has the rule. So it's like, why did we write this rule? And you'll see the thing that Hexwarp Thrallband does that the other three don't do is even worse, right? Because it is a specific type of attack and it alternates between you getting A benefit or B benefit. You look at Warpbane Task Force, we learned from demons that, hey, it's kind of hard to hold objectives for most of it. So there should be another thing that lets you have your area. Purifier squads. So you get reroll hit roll of one, or fuck it, reroll the entire hit roll. And if you're next to a purifier squad, bam, there you go. We learned from Army of Chaos, Shadow of Chaos with Chaos Demons that you probably need to put out some shadow somehow, some way to do a thing. Now, for demons, that means -1 to test if your opponent's in it, to battle shock test if your opponent's in it, and D3 mortals if they fail. And for you, it means +1 to test, heal D3 if you pass, right? And then demonic incursion, that's where all the shenanigans start. But again, it's just, we learned the lesson from this army rule enough that you need more. So it's odd that Thousand Suns didn't do that either. Like, they didn't make it so that directing their mindless rubrique from the sorcerers, right? They didn't have it so that sorcerers units output flow of magic. They didn't do it so that fucking sure characters didn't do it. Like, nobody is helping you with the flow of magic. But then you'd go, well, we've seen some other detachment do it and actually win games for a while that didn't do anything like that. That would be the Necrons with Canoptic Court. Once again, we have reroll hit rolls of 1 if it's entirely within your power matrix. Reroll the hit roll instead, but specifically for Cryptek or Canoptic units. Now, this gets better when everybody had to also deal with Canoptic Wraiths. Now, mind you, they're not damage dealers, but they were a little bit tuned, I'll admit. You have Doomstalkers that actually can do damage. And the reason that it's fallen off, because what the fuck cares about the rest of this? If you nerf this, that's kind of all of it, right? And then for the Cryptek aspect, all of these motherfuckers have to do with Immortals / Warriors, right? There's only so far that will get you. So, yeah. That's why it fell out of favor, on top of the fact that you have nerfed Cynosure of Eradication, into which it's not each model in a Canoptic or a Cryptek unit, it is the Cryptek or Canoptic models themselves gaining devastating wounds for 2 CP, right? That's drastically worse, and honestly, I'd like to see them undo that nerf now to see if it would change anything in the modern landscape. Actually, you all are seeing a spark right now to where I will come back around to Canoptic Court and see if it is better in the current day and age in general. That will be a separate video. Maybe it might just be a personal endeavor, but might be a video. Anyway, we've seen Canoptic Court be an example of maybe you don't need to put out more of your power matrix. But at the same time, we're looking at reroll hit rolls of 1 for a codex that is full of lethals and sustained for the units that are being affected here. Now, Not over here for the Canoptic side, I will admit, but for the Immortals and Necron Warriors, to which these Mancers, right, the Cryptex, are empowering. Yeah, that changes a lot of things. Meanwhile, you're not getting much of a buff out of it from Chaos Demons until you get to playing Demonic Incursion, and then you can teleport a little bit better, right? But for Grey Knights, I think this is where I'm no expert. I don't play Grey Knights, but I do see things in the gaming landscape for other factions that, again, I don't play, that I do look at and go, maybe don't do that, and it might be better for you. And it's really hard to see the forest for the trees at sometimes when you play your own faction for a while, right? Especially when you've had an index for a while, or even me. I'll complain about Tyrannage and things about within Tyrannage, but recently I finally changed my Crusher Stampede build, and it's a lot more fun. Is it more viable? It's a lot more fun. Um, Viability is subjective. Yeah, we'll go with that. But I say all that. That looking at it, I get it. It's been Dread Knight spam for a lot of Grey Knight lists this entire edition. I've understood that's the thing that you go, oh shit, Grey Knights. I'm sorry, Dread Knights. Um, but I'm looking at it, and you're telling me I can make a Grey Knights model, reroll a hit roll of 1 outside of my hollowed ground, and if they are within my hollowed ground, wholly within, it's reroll the entire hit roll, and a Purifier Squad puts out a 6-inch aura of hollowed ground. I just feel like there's much more abuse that can happen out of these data sheets. I will admit, I've looked through them, and I was trying to make or get more value out of the stratagems because we're looking at infantry, 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 Purifier Squad, unit, right? And that said, stratagem wise, you can't really abuse anything that says infantry with something like the Stormhawk Interceptor or the Storm Talon gunship. Like, there's nothing there. However, I will say that the vehicles do have hover, and if you just so happen to be hovering around some purifiers, now you're rerolling entire hits, right? So, I don't know. I've seen that. I've also seen that the discussion of, well, why aren't you just using Razorbacks? And I've seen the counterpoint go, because I don't want to. So, for that, if this is pretty cracked, right, you read the rules and you go, damn! And then it plays out to somebody that does want to use the rules, besides just putting 5 Grey... I keep saying Grey Knights. 5 Dread Knights and crossing their fingers because it's Grey Knights. You go, damn! But there needs to be something that is appealing for everybody, I guess? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what's happening as to why Grey Knights aren't in our face more. Because I know that the player base is smaller than other factions, right? But looking at the rule set, I'm not going to say that this is like a Star Shatter one where we overhype it and you just go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just want to, again, for anybody new around here, say, look, I knew that shit was not that good. It was aggressively okay. But with Warpbane Task Force, you look at it, it's just like, fuck. Reroll hit rolls of 1 for any Grey Knights unit. Reroll the entire hit roll if you're within hollowed ground for any unit. Well, go ahead, not allies, right? But like Grey Knights. And then if you stick infantry in places and I move, I might take a fuck ton of mortals because I decided to play the game? Or deep strike 6 inches, and if I didn't use terminators, I can charge after it? Like, these are rules that are very good. So, I don't know, maybe still waiting for a Grey Knights champion. I guess that's the other thing. The champion of the people for Grey Knights needs to come out and be like, hey, I know that we love Dread Knights, but this isn't the one for that, right? We've seen a lot of Dread Knight lists, and they haven't been doing phenomenal, right? They've been doing okay enough from what I've seen and understood. There's that. So you have a detachment that is touted to be very strong, an army rule that is really there, right? A detachment that was strong at one point, but thinking about it, was it strong because of the detachment rule or because of Cynosure of Eradication, right? Or is it because of Solar Pulse, right? So, it's, well, I shouldn't say Solar Pulse. Solar Pulse, it wasn't that strong, but it's it was good enough in my opinion. But I'll do another dissection on that. Um, but yeah, this is whatever. This was pretty good for a time, but it comes down to Wraiths and Cynos of Eradication for sure. You have another. This is probably strong, and then you have Hexwarp Thrallbrand. This is probably shit, right? And I get that they saw okay, Grey Knight's unit. Did Demon existing? Cryptek or Canoptic unit, they said, hey, we'll make it so that it's not a specific unit. We'll do you one better. It'll be psychic attacks. And they forgot that they didn't give Thousand Suns a fuck ton of psychic attacks. But even then, this is my other thing. I understand why they went with a wound roll instead of hit roll because there's a fair amount of flamers in Thousand Suns. But the other problem, the other problem is the fact that you just made it psychic attacks. So unless they fix cabal points, into which you can make 2 units entire weapon profile psychic attacks for the turn. I don't see this becoming drastically better unless you do something like that, right? You need to you need to find a way to give a lot more psychic attacks within the faction that still is a bit lore like focused, I guess, because from what I've understood, now please correct me if I'm wrong, but like again, directing their mindless rubrique. So you got Dust, you got the sorcerers that have all the power, directing a bunch of dusty motherfuckers, asking them to do things that don't really have power. They're dust, they're mindless rubrique. So you can't give all the units or all the model psychic attacks, right? Like that's why looking at who has psychic attacks now, it's pretty much the characters outside of Scarab Occult Terminators. So I don't know what the angle for the psychic attack part is. Why not just reroll wound rolls of one and then reroll the entire wound roll? That probably would have been enough for Hexwarp Thrallband and take out so much reliance on being within the flow of magic, right? Like, don't get me wrong, it needs to be better if you are wholly within your flow of magic, but shit like, where are we? Scouring Warp Flame, it doesn't have to be while it is wholly within your army's flow of magic. Like, cut that shit out. And then, maybe make it so that if you are outside of the flow of magic, you get Ignore's cover. If you are inside, you also get the strip cover. Right? Maybe that's the way you need to do it, but something needs to happen when I am outside my flow of magic because I am playing Thousand Suns and primary backslash holding objectives is not the strongest point of the faction. I get you want to do something different, but don't make it so that Thousand Suns are playing hard mode for absolutely no reason. So, just looking over all of, I think all, if I go back and realize I missed one, like the first time I tried this with the Crusher Stampede, Hollowed Martyrs type of detachments. I might just get lazy and add it as another tab later. But, looking over them, it's interesting that there's not a consistent power level. There's not one thing that one, two, three of them do better that you go, okay, that's the fix there. All right, so Grey Knights, it kind of works. Chaos Demons, it kind of works. Necrons, it kind of worked at a point, but nobody's using this anymore because the best unit out of it isn't that good anymore. Like, it's okay, but it's not busted anymore. And this one now is kind of better in another detachment. And nobody's bringing the shit that this shit attaches to anymore. So, right? Like, there's no easy plug and play to fix this. And how do you fix something that is broken but not bad broken? Like, broken as in, I wish you would get your shit together so I can complain about it more. But yeah, it's an interesting thing with this one. I don't know why they chose to make two more of these, but they did, and it is drastically different from one another. So hey, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.